cognitive faculty and the supreme desideratum. The subject of today's discourse is the cognitive faculty and the supreme desideratum, Chitti Shakti o Alambana. Both the supreme cognitive faculty and the supreme operative force are present in the primordial force or the causal matrix. Dharma is the means to reach that cognitive faculty and supreme desideratum. When a microcosm accepts something as the supreme desideratum, it becomes identified with its desideratum. For instance, when a cockroach constantly thinks of a kampoka in fear, its body gradually takes the form and color of kampoka. When a chameleon thinks about the color of a leaf on which it sits, its own color becomes the same as that of a leaf. This is called natural camouflage. The desideratum of the operative principle is the cognitive faculty. Parma Prakriti ideates on Parma Purusha because she is sheltered in Parma Purusha. That is why it is said in the scriptures, Prakriti sa nitya nivritta. Prakriti is being metamorphosed into Purusha at every moment because Parma Purusha is her object of ideation. Every entity of this created universe is associated with the cognitive faculty, either directly or indirectly. Parma Purusha's first object of creation is Parma Prakriti, the supreme operative principle. With the cognitive faculty's sanction, the operative principle then creates various entities of ever-increasing crudity. Thus, the first object which Prakriti creates in the process of evolution is Paramapurusha's second object of creation. The first object of Paramapurusha's creation is Prakriti. The second object is the first entity created by Prakriti. And the third object is that which is created by the second object. In this way, different objects are being created one after the other. These stages are mysterious as far as their external forms are concerned. They are created in such a way that one stage cannot only create subsequent stages, but provide vitality to them as well. These creations are not abrupt. The creative process can be likened to the manufacturing of sugar cane molasses. First the sugar cane is cultivated, then the juice is extracted from the cane. Then molasses is processed from the juice and finally sealed in tins. Just as all these stages occur in proper sequential order, similarly all the entities of the universe are created and connected to one another. Nothing is disjointed or disconnected, nor could that ever be possible. Whenever something is about to become disjointed or disconnected, Prakriti immediately places it in an order sequence again. Behind these stages of metamorphosis, the factors of time, space, and person are active. Had this gradual metamorphosis within Prakriti not occurred, the spatial, temporal, and personal factors would not have been created. To maintain the continued unfoldment of the various stages, time, space, and person are indispensable. These three relative factors are not required merely to substantiate existence. And for Paramapurusha, they are certainly unnecessary, but they are indispensable for facilitating the process of evolution. The primordial point of creation, or Shambhu, lies in Prakriti. Svayambhu exists between Purusha and Prakriti. Hence, Shambhu is the first object of Paramapurusha. The entity which is in full control is called Shambhu. In Shambhu there exists dynamicity, endeavor and evolution. The endeavor to transform takes the form of synthesis amongst the spatial, temporal, and personal factors. Without these three factors, Shambhu could never be manifested. When Shambhu and the operative principle become active with the help of the three relative factors, the name of that transformed Shambhu is Bhairava. Human beings try to awaken the seed which lies dormant in the individual human mind in a congenial environment. Suppose people possess certain good qualities, but due to an uncongenial environment are not able to express them. They eagerly search for a congenial environment, and as soon as they find it, they immediately express their latent qualities. The expression is made so quickly that it cannot be accompanied by any firm judgment or analysis. Here speed is the main factor. Judgment and analysis are secondary. Likewise, when Shambhu becomes manifested, that is, when it is transformed into Bhairava, it moves with tremendous speed in a straight line. At this stage, nothing can be created, because to create something, a calm mind is required. But when Shambhu is transformed into Bhairava, there is speed, there is a sudden release of energy, but no power of analysis. Its witnessship is embedded in the cognitive faculty. Thereafter, when Shambhu is being manifested in a straight line, the cognitive faculty is witnessing it also. But in spite of that, it is not able to create anything new, because Shakti is suddenly released, and the cognitive faculty is only witnessing this release of energy. When people's suppressed desires begin to take concrete form in the external world, they become confused. They wonder what should be done and what should not be done. When people watch the externalization of an internal thought which had been confined for a long time in the innermost recesses of the mind, or which had been kept hidden in the jeweled case of the inner heart, they obviously become confused. The same thing occurs when the tranquil Shambhu becomes metamorphosed into Bhairava. It can no longer remain within hard and fast rules and regulations. But in the subsequent stage, when there is some relaxation due to internal clash, it assumes a particular form, although a distorted one. This assuming of forms also takes place step by step when Shambhu remains in the form of the primordial point. It is itself a special stage. Thereafter, when Shambhu undergoes a change in the flow of energy, it reaches its second stage. This transformation is a necessity, because no creation can start from a stationary point. In order to commence the process of creation, Shambhu needs to imbibe tremendous momentum. In this tremendous momentum, the operative principle is more predominant than the cognitive principle. The operative principle, being a blind force, cannot create anything at that stage, but it heralds the beginning of an impending creation, when the internal clash causes distortion and creates waves. The first emanated wave is the longest wave. When a straight line is changed into a curved line, it is difficult to determine whether the first curvature is an idea or an object, because its wavelength is very long. We can certainly call it a particular stage, the very first stage. Thereafter the wavelength gradually decreases, resulting in a series of subsequent stages in which objects, elements, compounds, entities, ideas, and relative expressions are created. The first stage, in which the first expression is in a straight line, is called Bhairava. Thus evolution proceeds gradually from subtle to crude, and from crude to subtler, and finally to the subtlest. Thus the conversion into maximum crudity ends at that point, where no further crudification is possible. At that point there remains hardly an acceleration. From there retardation starts, and finally the conversion into solid matter. This complete cessation of movement is contrary to the principle of dynamics. In this universe, nothing can stop moving. Absolute pause or absolute speed simply do not exist. Pause and speed are relative. The cessation of movement is contrary to the principle of relativity, because between these two stages the relative factors are ever active. It is these factors which cause one stage to be converted into a subsequent stage. This is how the flow of creation proceeds in matter, in mind and in consciousness. When movement reaches the point of maximum crudification, it is given a severe jolt by the relative factors. At that stage there is no scope for further crudification, because the nadir point of crudity has already been reached. This nadir point is called Svayambhu. The jolt caused by the impact of the relative factors causes the flow of creation to move towards consciousness, that same consciousness which was once converted into abstract. Consciousness, abstract, and matter are the terms used to describe the same entity in different forms, in three different stages. Some learned fools incorrectly interpret these three stages as being different entities, thereby creating confusion in the common people. These three stages can be likened to ice, water, and vapor. The basic substance is the same, it merely takes different forms. This crudest point, Svayambhu, is an object of the cognitive faculty. The three stages are objects of the cognitive faculty, and time, space, and person. Functioning within these stages are also the objects of the cognitive faculty. The nature of time, space, and person is such that when they work on a subtle level, they automatically work in a subtle manner. In the subtle stage, space is not like this terrestrial earth. Time is not like the hands of a watch, and person is not like the human form as we know it. Rather, in that stage, the relative factors assume immense proportions. Space is the vast spatial expression, which even accommodates consciousness. Time becomes capable of reckoning the cosmic mind, and person is none other than Saguna Brahma. In a well-ordered environment of time, space, and person, the finite objects maintain the closest link with Paramapurusha. Once the mind is created, Paramapurusha is reflected on the mind. That internal reflection is called Gunatma. That is, Jivatma could reside in the five fundamental factors also if they had minds, what to speak of matter. Even a living protozoa has a mind, although a very undeveloped one. So it too receives the reflection of the vast cosmic mind. Thus whenever mind is expressed, or whenever the mind has originated, but is not yet fully expressed, the Atman is reflected. Where there is no mind, the material body is directly guided by the cosmic mind. Otherwise it is guided by its own small unit mind. Whatever exists in this orderly world, be it matter or mind stuff, trees, plants, birds or animals, or human beings, reflects Paramapurusha. Thus Paramapurusha is the witness of everything. Nothing can be kept secret from him. What is the unit mind? The macrocosmic mind originates from macrocosmic consciousness, just as the five fundamental factors originate from the macrocosmic mind. Similarly, out of matter evolves the abstract. The unit is created due to clash and cohesion, which takes place within every material structure. This mind tries to take command of all the activities of that structure, thereby establishing its total authority. But the question is, where does the unit mind, which exists in a protozoa, an evolved human being, or a learned scholar, actually come from? The unit mind is a metamorphosed form of matter, and matter is a metamorphosed form of cosmic mind. In the process of evolution, the cosmic mind takes the form of matter. The unit mind is obviously very small in comparison to the cosmic mind. How can such a tiny mind ever expect to use logic to analyze or judge Paramapurusha? To attempt to do that would be sheer arrogance, a futile pursuit which merely wastes time. For a unit mind, the wisest course of action is to ideate on the supreme entity, for by doing this it will become increasingly elevated. The nature of mind is to become as it thinks. Thus, when a mind constantly ideates on the supreme entity, it gradually expands and eventually becomes one with the cosmic mind, and it automatically becomes composed.